All right, I'm Jay Steinbeck. Thank you so much, yWhales, for tuning in yet again. And we have a very cool, company today with VDX Blockchain Solutions. And Aymeric here, but I want to go ahead and kick it off to Stefan, who can give you a little preview of what we're about to see today.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I'm super excited to see this. It's like much more of an enterprise integration with blockchain. So really excited to see it works. It's very similar, or it works well what I'm looking to do. And I know Jay has a bunch of cool stuff going on as well. So I think this could be a super cool and super interesting discussion.
Yeah, we do a lot of this very selfishly. Like we want to use your product for our projects. So this is a great opportunity to kind of interview you live and have our audience experience this as well. So, Aymeric, how and I'm going to massacre your name all day, so I apologize. So let's start with pre-project and how did you get into blockchain? When did you first hear about it, and what was that like?
Yeah, so I'll tell you more. And again, I'm so grateful. Probably the first thing I want to say is I'm so grateful to be here today for a number of reasons. And one of them is I feel we are in a period of time of human history and human progress that there's going to be that inflection point whereby there's going to be a convergence of a number of technologies. And I think blockchain will be probably at the very heart of it, whereby we're going to experience completely new models, new ways to interact, do business, and being at the forefront and an actor of it. Everyone on the show right now and probably the listeners are embarking on a new journey. And I want to show and tell everyone that we should be very grateful to be at that time. Exciting things are coming up. And if we can make an impact, anyone curious, genuine about innovation and making a difference will really enjoy this journey. So a bit more about myself. So I'm French. Difficult to hide my accent. I've been living in the UK because I'm based in London for probably 15 years. Become British as well. But my background is very traditional. It's essentially investment banking, financial services, brokerage. And then interestingly, so my parents live in a very small village in France and they are farmers. And back in 2014, my mom, who doesn't watch TV, but she listens to the radio a lot. And back in 2014, she mentioned about Bitcoin. And I didn't really pay attention to it. And then a year later, she mentioned again. And this time she mentioned about Ethereum, which is kind of crazy. And then I decided to look into it. And I just felt in the so-called rabbit hole and discover a number of things we can talk. But I think the first takeaway is always listen to your mom because they're here for you. And secondly, when you presented an opportunity, always dig in, never reject, embrace, see if it's for you, and you'll have a lot of fun doing this. So being very open-minded is the key. So from there, I started to get involved. Obviously bought Bitcoin. We're talking 2015. Got interested in Ethereum, and I fast tracked to 2016, 2017. Started to get involved in projects. Actually negotiating terms of ICOs with some of those ICOs, which is kind of funny because at the time the price of Ethereum, talking 2017, was going mad. So some of the offering were probably not very, I would say, fair. So having a say on the project and the tokenomics is kind of new, right? In the real world, you will not be able to do so. I work for an exchange aiming to leverage blockchain technology to simplify, the trading, the clearing, and the settlement of digital assets, and realized that this was probably a very good idea. Now the issue is probably more around regulation. And if you look at the blockchain space, and we'll probably talk in more depth, there's a lot of innovation happening within crypto because it's unregulated, it's open for any form of innovation. And that is one of the very, very interesting bits around that is it's limitless. And I joined VDX, and we'll talk a bit more about the company and the product. But I joined VDX to pretty much run business development, strategy, marketing, and obviously push our narrative towards the wider audience.
So jumping, into kind of the start of VDX, you guys didn't, you didn't start as an API connector. I was reading an old Medium article, and you were really trying to do document verification early on. And what was that thesis around?
So our founder, Freddie Alterk, very successful entrepreneur, done a number of exits. He's kind of I will say, he doesn't like me to say that, but he's kind of a genius because he grasped concepts very quickly. So he sat down in 2011, looked at the Bitcoin white paper, and 48 laters, he was actually mining. So he's always been ahead of the curve on number of topics, subjects. He created, I think back in 2000, the first digital radio, which is called Energy Groove, still works right now. He sold part of it. But I think the initially was to leverage blockchain technology for very few use cases, and one of them is obviously education. If we were to fast track a number of years later, pretty much start of this year, the idea was like, look, this has to be a much bigger vision because issuance and verification of digital assets is technically applicable to any industries. Like pretty much the internet has impacted, everything. And I don't know when we can talk about this, but it's interesting to discuss the evolution from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3, which is essentially the opportunity which is open to us. But the point was initially to create an API, to develop the model so that we can pretty much interact with any form of protocol, industries, and so on.
Yeah, so I'm not going to in any way stop you from talking about the journey between Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, because it's one of the things we talk about constantly. And I'd love to just hear your opinions or thoughts around where we are in terms of Web 1, versus where we are today. And I hear people talk about, anywhere from, 1998, 99 to all the way back to 93, 94. Yes. Now, with that same understanding that the timelines accelerate. So Web 3 moves so fast that even if we're in 1993 and super early, meaning we're in dial-up modem territory, which is kind of how I view all these, little widgets and wadgets we have to use to get around. But to go from 1993 to the year 2000 wouldn't take us 7 years. It would be a very quick, a much quicker, 2 to 3 years to get down that.
So I think it's interesting to see, history repeats itself, but doesn't always rhyme the same. And if you look at, and it's going to be relevant in the sense that, Web 1 was essentially, I think Web 1 was 1990 to 2005. Web 2 is, in my opinion, 2005 to 2020, and we're entering Web 3. So Web 1 was essentially e-commerce driven. It was desktop based, and it was dedicated infrastructure. And it's the like of Netscape, but everything was in silos. And the way to look at it is it was read only. Yeah, you had pages, you could look at them, and that was pretty much it. Web 2 became a lot more interesting because since 2005. Everything started to become social with the likes of Facebook and so on. The big differentiator was mobile because the emergence of smartphones, the iPhone just enable a lot more a value to be created and shared, and obviously cloud driven. Web 2 is cloud driven, which is commoditization of pretty much anything we've been using so far. So, bridging the gap between the technology and the people and creation of value. Yep. And the Web 2 is no longer read-only, it's write. Now, Web 3.0 is interesting because it's the next iteration. It's read, write, and own. And this is going to be relevant because there's been a conjunction of innovations such as AI, such as decentralization, thanks to blockchain, and obviously edge computing. And this aspect of ownership is so relevant. If you go back to Web 2.0, where you could be a large influencer on, say, for example, Twitter, would have millions of users. You have the green tick, makes you valuable and have a status. But when you log off, or when you're no longer using it, you own nothing, right? You could be deprived from your rights, your ownership, your clients in some respect, your followers, and you no longer have this sentiment of owning anything, right? Everything, all the value is captured by those big companies.
Yeah, no, it's very centralized and very controlled, and they will tell you what you're supposed to think and how you're supposed to do, versus Web3 now, which is it's out there. Filter it however you like. So, but please keep going.
Yeah, so Web 2 is interesting, and the reason why, I circle back on what you were saying, Web 3 is going to accelerate dramatically, because if we take the mobile phone, the reason why the mobile phone exploded was not just because Apple introduced a new phone. It was a conjunction of technologies. Yeah, they use, actually interestingly, a CPU from Samsung. They use the Gorilla Glass, obviously Verizon in the US, the 3G network. So they just aggregated a number of technologies, and the timing was perfect for them to launch, that product that obviously, made everything available so quick and so fast. And I think for Web3, we're observing exactly the same thing. I'm a big fan of the metaverse, big fan of what the metaverse will bring, and we can talk, later on this very, seasonal and for me, mind-blowing topic. But Web3 is again a conjunction of technologies such as blockchain, AI, and this ability for the device, thanks to edge computing, to actually take control back of the data, take control back of ownership, and making things more fairer, cleaner, and more transparent. And that's how you actually create wealth in this world.
No, and listen, you're really digging yourself a big hole, because now you're going to let us talk about metaverse. So we're going to have a great time here today. So let's take a second, and I really want to dive into, and I thank you for all that. Let's really talk about VDX and what that is today, the solutions you're trying to solve. And then I absolutely want to flow into what the future of Web3 and blockchain really is in your circle, in your mind. But let's jump into VDX, because it's an incredible product.
Yeah, so I mean, we're very humble in the sense that for the last 3 years, Freddy has been building in the background in stealth mode the VDX technology. There's in the current industry, and blockchain, crypto, there's a lot of PR going around, and usually are just announcements whereby we're trying to take the exact opposite mindset, which is we build in the background, and then once we're ready, and I'll talk to you about the defense conversation which we have right now, which probably will put us on the map. So VDX, what we're trying to solve essentially is, as we mentioned, there's a lot of innovation around the cryptocurrency space. It's mind-blowing. You're talking about DeFi, NFTs, the metaverse, and so on. Now, most of the innovation happens within the boundaries of cryptocurrency. Yeah? So you're not really tapping into global adoption. So our angle around VDX is to become the bridge between the blockchain and blockchain benefits and the real world. And we're talking applications, companies, developers, and so on. So what we developed is a plug-and-play API, which is empowering companies, developers to easily leverage the benefits of blockchain. So they can build and use revolutionary applications. And I'll go through a number of examples, but what we're trying to solve, so we are essentially a provenance as a service company. We have a sophisticated hashing algorithm whereby you can issue and verify any assets at scale. And those assets could be either physical or digitally native. Now, the problem we're trying to solve here, apart from global adoption of blockchain, and if you look at the reason why blockchain is so popular and is getting a lot of traction, NFTs is just a direct application of it, is all the benefits around blockchain, and that's something that sometimes people forget about it. Decentralization is one, increased trust, security, cost reduction, transparency, and obviously immutability, which all in all increase efficiency. So what we solve here is as well, if you look at the real world, there's not too many projects which are actually leveraging blockchain technology at large scale. There are a lot of proof of concept, trials, but it's not yet used seamlessly through large organizations, and that's what we're trying to solve here. Now, the reason why this is not happening is for a number of reasons. Number one is usability. It's not an easy way to use it. All the protocols, talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, and so on, are all different. They have their own specific peculiarities. There is as well a limited internal expertise across those companies, those large companies, to actually, use and understand what's going on. Integration is a problem, the maintenance, the security, and the privacy. So all those problems explain the reason why so far there's been very little adoption of blockchain technology across the real world and large companies. Now, what is interesting about VDX and the way it's been built from scratch is the fact that we're 100% agnostic. So we developed a technology which is agile and can be deployed across a number of different, industries, devices, format. We're talking about video, pictures, audio, documents, invoices, you name it. We're agnostic as well in terms of the blockchain protocol. We can rely, and we're starting to work on a gaming project with the Solana network, but we can as well interact with Bitcoin, Ethereum. So there's no restriction on our side. And finally, infrastructure. We can deploy in any type of infrastructure from, let's say, defense companies, which usually are in premises, to AWS, up to decentralized, storage, such as like Filecoin on Airwave.
No, because you're painting this perfect picture of exactly what Web3 should be. It should be chain agnostic. It should be easy to use, secure, and legible to the public. And so, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And so, to get to this, and you guys have, when did VDX start?
So it started late 2017. And we've been building the product up to, let's say, I think the product is 95% ready. It was end of last year.
I'd love to hear some use cases. Yeah, I think the use cases would be really helpful just to get like a good grasp of it.
Of course. And the one thing to know, we build an API, but just having an API doesn't really help, right? And it's what we've done is we build a number of different applications which are actually leveraging VDX technology, because our goal, our mission with VDX is to turn any portal, website, and application into a blockchain powerhouse. So it's kind of essentially a decentralized infrastructure offering decentralized solutions. In terms of applications, I'll give you a number of examples. Number one, we designed an application called Sign App or VDX app, because we can white label very easily, which is essentially a DocuSign on steroids. It's exactly the same thing that DocuSign, whereby you can sign a document. We could sign the three of us a document like DocuSign, and that's it. Now, what we added is everything is actually hashed and recorded on the blockchain. And the interest of this, compared to just a DocuSign, is you can verify if the contract we sign is actually legit. Yeah, because most of documents are very easily, it's easy to counterfeit a document. The technology we have around, even with just a simple Photoshop, it's very easy to change elements or different sort of signatures, date, timestamping, and so on. Now, if you rely on a record on the blockchain, which, as we know, is completely mutable, especially networks like Bitcoin and Ethereum, it becomes a lot more difficult and almost impossible to make it a fraud. So our application VDXsign enables to prepare, sign, act, and manage any type of agreements, and as well verify those documents. Now, what you can do on top, you could add an expiry on the contract, which is then hashed on the blockchain. And if you were to upload the document, it will tell you no longer that the document is legit, but as well it's actually have expired or not. And that suddenly changed completely a simple application of signing to what we feel is more a document management system.
Wait, so I want to go back to that into some more detail. How does that actually work? Okay, so I want to sign a document with you. Like, what actually happens? How does the data get passed around? How does it get saved? I'm super curious as to which part is VDX and which part is Ethereum or whatever blockchain you're using.
So we are zero knowledge proof in the sense that we will not store anything on our servers, right? So you have a document, and say, for example, Stefan company you created a company, you create a contract that you want to sign with Jay. So you will take the document and you will have it signed by Jay, and then it will be hashed.
Sorry, but signed how? Like, does it actually get uploaded
like
and
a
he
DocuSign
countersigns via his address?
Yeah. So you have an interface.
It's just like traditional DocuSign.
Exactly.
Okay.
You have an interface exactly the same. Jay will receive an email, click a link, and then he will sign. And that document, once it is fully signed on both sides, will be anchored on the blockchain.
I see. Okay. And so what VDX then does is it's basically, so it's DocuSign, but then the API you're providing basically takes that document and uploads it to Filecoin or whichever storage.
Exactly. Yes. Could be as simple as
okay.
AWS. Now the interesting bit is if I were to get this contract, I could go on your website, upload the contract, or upload it directly on VDX, and you will know if the contract is actually legit or not. If it's obviously permission, right? Because that document can be private, so no one from the public will be able to have access to it. So everything is essentially hashed on the blockchain, so that you'll have the certainty that this contract is actually legit. And again, we read every day the number of counterfeit and fraud or data breach. God knows, maybe tomorrow someone's going to attack the servers of DocuSign, and they will be probably able to backdate a number of documents, and you will not know what is true or what is not. So having kind of a third party like blockchain give you this comfort and leverage the immutability aspect of it.
So just on a clarifying point, so the solution that you've built is a combination of Web 2 and Web 3. So a lawyer who has no idea what how the blockchain works could utilize this the same as DocuSign, but they just have that validity of the blockchain verification and hash. There's no coding involved. There's no
absolutely nothing. It's all automated, of course, and it will sit within. For example, we're talking about Stefan company, will sit within Stefan's company. Yeah. Wow. Nothing will sit with us.
So yes. Does it actually upload the the document itself, or do you basically just upload a hash of the
The
document
hash.
and then I
Yes.
can rehash my document and just proof it basically? So you're just
Yes.
uploading a proof effectively. So it's going to be super small.
Yes.
You can upload it to whatever Ethereum. So I'm not actually going to be able to get the document off the chain. You're effectively just uploading the verification, so to speak, the verification of it to the
Yes.
block. And so that's the part you're automating. Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because the we could, in an ideal world, you will want to hash everything. Now, the cost of storage, it might be a problem. It's very similar to NFTs, right? Because most of people don't probably understand that you have the hash of the NFT, and then you have the physical image of the NFT, which is stored, could be an IPFS or whatever is chosen. But yeah, it's if tomorrow Falcon becomes the valuable and valid storage solution, because it's obviously very cheap, everything is possible. Now, if we go back to the the end goal here, which is global adoption of real world people, large companies, that probably will have to sit within a JP Morgan or a large Walmart or retail company. Because the point is, as much as we're excited about Web3, we're going to have different iteration and evolution of the technology, right? I don't see a Walmart being 100% Web3 tomorrow, but there will be different steps. And that's where we want to help, because obviously we want all of this to be completely decentralized and involved as in governments, but it will take probably a little more time around this.
Yeah, I'm curious on that. Are you guys open source as well? Like, are you kind of doing more the Web3 approach or the more Web2 approach? Because it feels like you're kind of bridging the two things.
Yeah, so it's probably 2.5. Yeah, so we're not yet open source, but we are. The goal is the more success we'll have, the more open we'll be, for sure. There's been
Okay, cool.
a lot of work done around obviously our IP, the way we model or algo and so on. But yeah, the more successful we'll be, the more we'll be open, for sure.
And so is your goal to keep building actual products like the DocuSign-like product, or are you looking to build just the API bridges and then more provide the API bridge to someone like DocuSign and have them integrate more with blockchain?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think the goal here is, the latter, which is we do want to be a company where we call ourselves, the Twilio of blockchain, because we just want to be a minting machine that can essentially hash and enable any company's businesses and industries to verify those assets. Now, what we've done is we build applications to highlight the potential of the technology. I'm happy to give you another example. Right. It's a typical, SaaS business. We call it provenance as a service, but where it becomes more interesting and more scalable is to have people using the technology. Imagine to have, a marketplace whereby people could actually design applications and leverage the technology. Now, I have another application we build 4 of them. The other application is what we call VDXid, which is an NFT app. And what it does, it gives users the ability to immediately crystallize, I would say capture, encrypt, and own the assets. Say, for example, you take with the app, you take a picture of yourself and Rockstar, you hash it on the blockchain immediately, and suddenly you become actually owner of this asset. So it's kind of on-the-go application, and you immediately actually own the the NFT. And this application can deal with any type of format, photo, video, documents, and so on. Now, this is where it becomes interesting, because we build this application again to highlight the capabilities of our API. Now, we got approached by one of the largest, and I can't say the name, but one of the largest Premier League football club. And that's exactly what they want to build. And, most likely we're going to ink something very, very soon. But they wanted to have an application which is enabling their fans around the world to connect better, because right now they have fans in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. There is no way for them to connect. And the NFT revolution will enable them to create a lot more value, visibility, engagement, and our application is a good fit for them. Now, we didn't build it on purpose. We just said, look, that's something available. Now, in the real world, people could just have already, like for example, DocuSign could just integrate with us very easily to have this bridge with the blockchain technology, right?
So let me jump over to the NFT concept to make sure I understand. So what they're trying to do is, as they're taking pictures of games or have interviews post or pre or post game, they're, instead of just uploading them to their website and saying, here they are, they're uploading them with the fact that it's already created an NFT as ownership all at the same time. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the use case for them, and probably a lot more, sports companies, brands, to go, very wide up to fashion and luxury, is to create content. Now, to make that content interesting, you need to make it available, and that's the big creation of NFTs. Yeah, this ability to have an asset, which could be, the 100 top goals of Club X. It could be, the top players, the legacy players, whatever they created, and giving the ability to. There's two ways. One is the club to release collections, and you can do a segmentation around, the top high end to the one which are more affordable to, lower budget. And as well, another angle will be for creators and fans of the club to self-generate interesting content, which obviously will become NFTs and potentially tradable. You can add gamification around this, marketplace. You create a whole new universe, which then will relate and derive to the metaverse, because that's the vision of this club.
So what VDX is doing is, in both of these cases, is you're truly acting as an API, as to be able to speed up a process to integrate it into the blockchain. I think it's very interesting how you talk about Web 2.5, meaning that you're using the standards that we have today. Everyone knows there's plenty of upload tools. There's plenty of ways to take a picture and upload it to a website, instantaneous, because that's what fans are. They need instant replays, instant this. And so instead of taking those files, downloading them, going and uploading them through some other source, they're just able to integrate your API into their workflow. So picture, download, and then hash on the chain, then it's uploading to their website where the fans can then interact. They can sell them, they can buy them, those things there. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's within an app. So the app is ready for the end user. But the point is, it's like you have your phone.
Yep.
There's an app, and then you just take pictures and it will anchor it immediately on the blockchain. And then obviously we'll integrate with marketplaces, which we are conversation right now, and think about the gamification of, it can be as simple as, if you were to collect 3 NFTs, you will go through potentially a lottery, which gives you the ability to meet one of the top player. This application could be used by players themselves. They could have some form of royalties with the club on whatever is sold through the app. So it's really open. It's essentially giving the tool to create. And as we know, if we talk about Web3, it's about engagement. It's about creation of value. It's become, going from a passive user to actually an ambassador. And if tomorrow you're a supporter of whatever club and you've been given a voice to actually explain and demonstrate your love for the club, your creativity will probably serve you very well, because some of those creations will become viral, meaning that you as well as a creator could become, incentivized to add value to the club and the brand equity of the brand.
So I want to take a quick second here, and I'm just going to pull up your website. And one of the one of the charts you have on here, I think, is relevant as people are watching this. You truly view yourselves as an intermediary. The fact that you're creating a product is not generally what you do, because you guys, I mean, you've got in here food traceability, healthcare, red tape management, defense supply contracting, land registry, energy consumption, in-game. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's trying to do a Web 2 verification solution. You're just bringing that hash onto on chain, and connecting those two dots, whatever it may be. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, the interesting bit is, for example, for the NFTs, what the app, which is obviously leveraging the API, does, it just very simplistically show you that you're the owner of the asset in a very simple way. So it's not reinventing the wheel, it's giving you accessibility, so simple information. And here is obviously the verification, but as well the creation. Now, if we look at all those use cases, we have a number of conversations. I mean, there's another app we work. So we're talking right now with one of the competitor of Spotify. I'm not saying Spotify is evil, but it's still we're still in the very heart of Web 2.0, where they have an agenda. You're a creator, you're probably going to have very little royalties around your content. But the competitor of Spotify we're talking right now, and we're very enthusiastic that we should be able to seal something before end of Q1, is completely to change the way music is run. And I want to do a parenthesis about the music industry if you compare it with the gaming industry. So the music industry, in terms of revenues, every year generates around $20 billion. Yeah, the gaming industry is 145 billion, and the movie industry is 45 billion. So the question will be, how come the music industry is 7 times smaller than the gaming industry? And the reason is because the music industry is very closed. It's a very closed loop. There's just a few music publishers. Everything is locked and opaque in some respect. The assets are not very open. Where if you look at the gaming industry, this is an interesting one, because gaming went from a long time ago from pay to play. You bought your game, you play on your PlayStation, and that's it, to a model which is more free to play, which is the model we're observing right now, which is very obviously generate 145 billion per year, which is it's free to play. Now, if you want add-ons, if you want to buy a skin, and if you want to have status within that game, you're going to have to actually buy some of those assets. And now what we're evolving towards is the earn to play, which has been obviously created more or less by Axie Affinity, whereby your efforts will be incentivized with obviously tokens and the ability to sell those tokens for a monetary equivalent. Now, if I go back on the music industry, there's no reason that the music industry could not go as high as the gaming industry. And to do that, you need to start to empower musicians, which are the very heart of the music industry, with the right tools and the right model. So, if you look at the music industry, you have recording, you have mixing, editing, publishing, sync, streamline, online store, and so on. And all of this could actually be digitized. All this metadata, all the music catalog songs, all the different steps undertaken to create a song. Could be starting from one person, then you have another person, a singer, a mixer. You could actually create the whole chain of data with the right amount of royalties split between all of them. So if you were to put all this metadata on the blockchain, it will significantly improve the immutability and obviously the transferability of those assets. Because essentially that's what we're trying to do here, is to help a company to become a lot more open. And as we know, the more open you are, the easier it will flow, it will create network effects, and music will be a lot more available, free to use, and easier to actually monetize because it's transparent. That makes sense.
I'm just going, I'm on your website at the same time, and I'm looking at the apps that you guys have developed. And the first thing that comes to mind with everything you're doing is, how big is your team?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So we've been very lean for the last 4 years. So we are 7 people, and I'm the non-tech person. So Freddie obviously is our guru, is in charge of the vision and creating the whole architecture. And then we have developers, we have head of development, architects. So very small and lean and humble team.
I think I would love a more in-depth explanation of like which part of that cycle the product actually performs, right? Because like obviously DocuSign, like what the product you're actually trying to sell, which sounds like it's the APIs, like how does the integration actually work if I'm DocuSign, right? Because your goal is not to build your own apps, right? Your goal sounds like it's be the API provider. So I'd love to just get some more technical understanding of how that, like, how does the integration work? Do I just sign up and I get an API toolkit? Like I would love to just kind of get a better sense for that. How do I pick up the API?
Oh, you have endpoints, and you just use the documentation, the Swagger, and all the documentation. You don't need to understand blockchain, right? You just need to understand the endpoints. So we have some form of documentation, and that's pretty much it.
So what if I'm understanding that? So basically, it's something more like I go to your website, I download your API documentation, and then I can load your API into whatever my app, and I can say, hey, upload this image, or I do an API call that is basically like upload this image to Ethereum. And then you do everything else. And whatever, here's my address, here's my private keys, all that stuff, right? And then the whole thing gets, you ship effectively that product to the blockchain. And then, so it's more of an upload tool effectively. Do I get that right? Where it's the you upload a hash to the blockchain via API.
Yes, correct. Yes. What is important, because obviously Freddie is the tech person, right? So given the fact that we have IP related to our algo, there are things we probably can't say. The one thing I want to emphasize is we are working to close a number of deals, which obviously will put us on the map, and that will probably expand a little bit more the capabilities around the technical aspect. But I won't be able to go through a deep dive on the way the technology works, because that will be more a conversation with Freddie, and he might actually not release because, and you rightly pointed out.
That was super helpful. That was pretty much what I was trying to get to. So your customer market then is like, it's more just an enterprise IT team, right? So if you're a soccer club and you have an IT team of 60 people that runs your website and does all that stuff, instead of them having to learn, well, how the hell do we post something to, how do we create an NFT on Ethereum? Basically, they come to you and just use your API. And so then it's really true like Twilio, where they pay you $0.25 cent to use your API. You do the posting, they have an address set up, all that stuff. And so you're really trying to just basically disintermediate the IT team from having to learn blockchain. And so you're just making it a lot easier for them to use
and
blockchain.
It's not, if you go through the whole spectrum of, blockchain, there's some very complex technologies. What we're trying to do here is to go after the low-hanging fruits, because we know that very soon, it's going to be adoption from those companies that probably try to, use technologies like Hyperledger. If you look at trade finance, there's been a number of attempts, and we feel that we're very well positioned to actually get the call from large companies that will use very simple use cases, like, for example, traceability. One of the interesting point about our API is we can deal with scale. So if you're a large retailer or Walmart, you're sitting with millions and millions of SKUs, references. We have a conversation right now with a large RFID manufacturer. Yeah, so barcode. They work with any form of industries. Yeah, from clothing to retail, food, and so on. And for this company, their fear is to become the next Kodak in the sense that they need to have an additional layer of value, and the value is provided by blockchain because suddenly everyone across the chain, from the manufacturer, the the exporter, the distributor, and the retailer up to the consumer can have actually access to the data, which obviously more data will give more information. Obviously it has to be permission accordingly, but you again you go from silo systems to actually something which is more open, and that's why this it's probably not even 2.5, it's probably 2.35 web, because we need to be patient, because the moment we're going to see traction from real world applications leveraging blockchain, and now it's going to be in the press. No longer it's going to be only Bitcoin and the price of cryptocurrencies, but the fact that an Adobe or a DocuSign is actually leveraging blockchain. And just one point on DocuSign. DocuSign tried the experiment with blockchain 3 years ago, and they failed. And we're trying to push them to revisit the case, because there are very easy ways through our technology to just enable that bridge.
Wait, why did it fail? Which part failed?
I think it was, the cost was one, but as well the infrastructure, because in any software development stages, the key one is the start. So if you build on the wrong infrastructure, or your design is not fit for the future, you might be stuck. If you build on
sure. Yeah. What were they doing? They were doing something similar where they were trying to upload a hash, and then it just didn't end up pan out, or what was
correct?
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So and they are not the sorry.
Mm-hmm. Oh no! So real quick, and this is a good point to make. So blockchain is super secure and transparent and everything else, but it's in most cases not fast or speedy. In some cases, not cheap. So when you're talking about something like somebody that wants to do millions of SKUs, millions of hashes, and that's probably millions of hundreds of thousands of transactions an hour and plus and ramping up. Which chain would you even today put that on, and how would VDX manage the backlogs of these hashes onto some more chains? Because if you try to write it all in Ethereum, it's extremely expensive. If you're going to try to roll it up, it doesn't always kind of get in there. So you get where I'm going with this?
Yeah. So I think the initial point is whatever the customer wants to do, right? If we're talking with a large manufacturer, they're going to have probably restrictions. They might say, Bitcoin, not a big fan. They might elect to go through a layer 2. There's a number of different chains. And again, for us, we're completely agnostic. So we'll probably do some research and see, for that particular use case, do you need to hash immediately? Do you need to? So there's a number of components that we would take into consideration. And the other aspect we can do as well is to mint across different blockchain at the same time. Yeah, that's something we can do as well. Reinforce the level of security. But if tomorrow, I don't know, Polygon, which seems to have very low, transaction fees, is the right solution, why not? It's Solana right now, obviously it's got a lot of momentum. The transaction fee seems to be very low. If tomorrow it's no longer the case, you could always swap and go and jump on another chain. So there is that flexibility that if you were to build on a private or permission blockchain, you're stuck with one model, where in our case, it's whatever the customer wants, knowing the constraints and the restrictions, and being future-proof, because tomorrow might be different.
So if today, and this is just a curious question, today, I've got to write a million transactions a day. Who's the fastest one that you guys are currently using?
So we started to work with a gaming project which just came with a very innovative concept on kind of another iteration of the earn to play model, and decision has been made to go on Solana because it sounds like at the time the right seems to be the right momentum. God knows, maybe there's going to be layer 2 on Solana. I don't know. But that's kind of the logic that right now these people are actually going for. So Solana.
Interesting. Is there anything that we didn't cover around your platforms that you want the users to kind of be aware of? Because there's so much. You're so broad, but you're also very narrow in your scope. But you cross over so many industries.
One thing that could be done is, and we find it very interesting. So we have the VDXid, which is essentially biometric recognition. So that will give you this, what we call the blockchain power 2FA. So you will hash your identity on the blockchain using obviously AI and machine learning. That will be actually very interesting for this 2FA blockchain powered aspect. Now, if you were to
wait, sorry, how does it work? What do you mean you hash your bio identity?
So you will take a picture of yourself, and that picture will be hashed and anchored on the blockchain. Now,
okay,
I'll give you an example, because we had the inquiry from a tier 3 bank in the UK, and that bank, the problem they have is, when you go, the Wall Street in London is called Canary Wharf, and they have like plenty of buildings full of probably 20,000 people each building. So the point is, every time you have your access badge, you enter the premises, you swipe your badge, you enter, done. Now, what is the probability for that bank to know that whoever has the badge is the right person? So the thinking they had was, what about if we had a system which we don't have to trust, where the user will, when they're close to the gate, will scan the face, the picture will be hashed and compare with the hash on the blockchain that you've done initially as when you set up your account. Obviously, what needs to be done.
But the hash of one picture would be different than the original picture, right?
Correct.
Unless you take an identical picture every time.
Correct. Now that's where we link it with AI and machine learning, because it will take into consideration the 3D aspect, the distance between your eyes. Obviously, today you're wearing glasses, a hat. The other thing is, the more you go to work, the more hash will be done, and then you will have actually sometimes an average of it. So we've done a few tests. It's pretty cool, but that will solve the problem of not having the right people in the right building.
So what you're saying is that every time they walk through, you're not only comparing to that original hash, but you're adding every single time they walk through that gate. So if they've been there for 10 years, clearly they're different than their original picture.
Correct.
And it's just this living data. So you're able to use it for security, but when did they come in and out as well?
Sorry, I don't follow that, but the hash is just a one-way encryption. Effectively, you cannot tell anything from a hash. So how does comparing it to a previous hash do anything?
No, what you'll do is, every time you scan your face through the app, it will compare with the previous hash. Now, the previous hash could be rehashed with all the previous hash.
But that's not how hashes work. I mean, if you compare hashes, it doesn't tell you anything. I mean, a hash is completely informationless. You have to rehash the same original picture to be able to match it, but the hash doesn't have any information in it, except, right? I mean, the hash wouldn't tell you anything.
There's an aspect I can't disclose, which obviously will answer your point, because that's kind of proprietary, but we found a way to actually make it work so that and I agree with you, completely agree, because that's the initial thought, but we have found a system whereby every time you will come, it will check the record on the blockchain and ensure that you're the person you're supposed to be. But that's something
Cool.
we've been developing in the background. Yes.
I,
Yes.
I think Stefan, you got to remember he's Web 2.3, 2.35. So there's a
Yes.
mix of standard things because the company's not all that could live on chain because it's just too slow. Someone walking in, literally, I'm guessing, is just walking past a camera. They're not going to stand there and hang out for 50 seconds while the thing downloads from Filecoin. So it's really an interesting deal. I'd like to take a second and start pivoting because Aymeric, you have this vision, and your company truly has a vision for the future of what blockchain can and almost should be, and it's really hard to go out more than 12 to 24 months in this world. But what really is exciting you guys? I mean, obviously your projects currently, but what's really captured your attentions of theoretical possibilities?
I mean, our goal is again to empower those companies and businesses with tools that will make the world more efficient, trustworthy, and transparent. And if tomorrow, and we'll see what happens with the number of pipeline we're working right now, our name or our technology is being utilized, that will put us on the map. Meaning that it means that it's no longer a question of business, question of are we right in what we're doing? Because like any business, any startup, you come with the willingness to change something, to make an impact. And we feel that right now the timing is perfect, even though most of the innovation happens within the boundaries of crypto. And our bet and our vision is this will expand toward the real world, which maybe doesn't excite too many people within the crypto space. But we think there's immense value to be brought in the same fashion that cloud computing just increase and commoditize a number of different industries. We feel that blockchain, if we can have an impact in that sense, if we can tomorrow enable the tracking and the provenance for diamonds, and we can facilitate that, that would be a very noble mission. So, and it's you're talking about tickets. We started to have conversation with, there's this issue with tickets where tickets sometimes very interesting.
One of the things that it's starting to become very clear is you guys have embraced Web 2. You've embraced cloud computing, SaaS systems, and everything that's there. And your goal is not to take these existing, which is what happens a lot right now, is to take your existing business model and throw all that away and try to put it all 100% on chain. You're giving them the way to dip their toe in the water and say, look, your business works. You're selling tickets. You have platforms. You have solutions that you've probably invested, millions and millions of dollars into. Here's how you can at least start to utilize the blockchain technology, and wherever they go from there, I'm sure you'll be part of that journey. But that's correct. You're just giving them access without having to restructure everything they're doing today.
Exactly. It's we feel that those are low hanging fruits, and the interesting bit is the replication of it. If tomorrow that competitor of Spotify jump in and we develop the whole system, and suddenly other competitors feel that they want to gain more market shares, or they want to be more fair with the musicians, monetize better the music catalog, or make it more fairer for everyone to have the ability to probably invest at early stage in an artist. I mean, all those bits will be facilitated. I don't know if you've seen, but Andreessen Horowitz invested 55 million in a platform called Royal, which is essentially trying to achieve this in the sense that you're an artist, you come in and you'll be able to very easily mint your music. And essentially what we're trying to do with that competitor of Spotify. So the market is massive. No one is really tapping into it. There is no expert in the space because everything has to be done, right? And blockchain is is what, $2 trillion industry. If you were to implement all of this towards the real world, we're talking, tens and tens of trillions of dollars of value, which take us maybe at some point to the metaverse, because the metaverse is another extension of our world, and that's going to be bigger than what we experienced so far. So that's where we want to go. But to do it properly, we need to have, those early adopters in the real world.
So let's leave the VDX world. What are you interested in? What have you seen recently? Just in blockchain, NFT, gaming, metaverse. There's, I think 8,000 metaverses getting ready to launch. We had a bunch of people over at NFT Basel, and it was just like, yeah, there's, every third table was a new metaverse launching. What are you seeing that really gets you excited?
I think we are going to end. 2011 was definitely the year of NFTs, and right now it's, the gaming industry is massive, and that's where, NFTs are starting to mingling with gaming, DeFi, this new concept of GameFi. Yeah. But what gets so interested is to have like large brands. I was mentioning about the football club, maybe Formula One. These people taking, the game, a step further, because most of those brands, they have a massive, let's say, reputation, audience, followers, and so on. What we find will be very interesting is these brands to embrace, the blockchain, revolution with NFTs, and giving more power to their followers, users, and fans. That to me is very interesting, because it's a lot more inclusive. We're talking a lot, lately around diversity, and that to us is very interesting. So, the metaverse, and I'm not necessarily a fan of Facebook, but I think Facebook has done an immense, work for everyone around, the crypto space with the metaverse, because they put the notion out there that, every user of Facebook now is aware of metaverse and meta. It's a difficult concept to explain, but it's out there, and that's great.
I'm upset that they kind of stole the name Meta, but that's okay. So now we're all in a search for the new name that we can call it, to not give them any any credence.
To circle back on your point, I think the metaverse is. I have a feeling that the metaverse is more or less in '98 when internet was created. Yeah, so people are more or less aware, but obviously there's a lot of work to be done in the space, from content, from culture. Culture is very important. Communities. That's what actually is the juice of Web 3.0. The medium, the way to access the metaverse, the infrastructure, and as well protocol and standards. So these things will evolve, but it's to me, I'm complete. We can talk more about the metaverse, but what happened in the past is completely logical to get this conjunction of concepts to materialize in something that now is called the metaverse, and will probably, the full version of all those metaverses will probably, maybe in 5 years' time, everything's going to be operated, or most of, economical activities could be actually operated through it. We could actually do, a podcast with our glasses at some point, or masks. But yeah, this is to me the most exciting bit around the space right now.
Yeah,
very good.
Listen, and to be clear, we tried to figure out how to do that, and then we gave up because there was no way to record it, and everything else was going to be a disaster. In your mind, and this is I'm throwing you on the spot here. What are the top 3 things that a metaverse is going to have to be successful?
So, it starts with, culture, because culture is important. Having the right infrastructure and having the correct hardware, because without any of these 3, I don't think we're going to go anywhere. And these things are being built, right? So what I found very interesting about the metaverse is the fact that you don't necessarily need to wear those glasses. Yeah, you could interact with your phone as well. Someone could be within the space, you could be outside, but you could interact with it. And I think that's the bridge that becomes a lot more interesting. Because if everyone has to wear glasses or headsets, that will probably limit a little bit in the short term. Now, if someone is 100% in it, and I can log in with my phone, just have a conf call, it's there's a number of different experiences around that. But I think what is interesting about the metaverse, because there's different ways to actually define it, and we could spend an hour to define it. But I think people say it's a virtual world. I would say probably not, because if it was only a virtual world, virtual worlds exist for a long time. So it has to be a combination of social, it's live, it's persistent, meaning that it's not something that reset or pause, it just continues. It's hardware agnostic, so the fact that you can log in with different headsets or just your phone and interact, I think that's very important for the slower, the adoption of the whole concept as a whole. It has to be interoperable in the sense that we're talking now different type of blockchains, different type of protocols, and the fact that you have the ability to jump from one world to the other world with the same skin or the same gun and so on, which are things we could probably help. It's what I think will be economically very fertile, because whoever you are, from being an individual, a company, or an agency, you will be able to create, buy, sell, lease, invest in any form of assets. I was reading an article yesterday, and they said that it will be billions of versions of shoes, clothes that will be worn on the metaverse. So sky's the limit. When you see that a Gucci metaverse shoe sell almost 50% higher than the real shoe, that shows you how powerful the concept is. And obviously it will be content rich. So it will be the best incubator of ideas for developing the crazier things we haven't even thought about. And that's why I think the metaverse is so exciting, is this ability to be more in control, more participation, more interactive, and more expensive.
And expensive is kind of a different term, because when you talk about some of these things selling for 100 ETH or 500 ETH, it really depends on when they got into ETH. Somebody could have a basis of $2 in there. So there's really being early to the game is almost crucial and that's why we see in yWhales and everything we do, we see people enter, and then within a few weeks they become frantic. They literally become frantic, as if they've missed something, and they have to go in so fast. And how so? Which is a term called FOMO. What do you see as kind of the biggest projects out there now? And none of this is financial advice. This is just opinions. But what do you see out there that you actually think has legs that can run with it? I mean, we see Bored Ape Yacht Club bringing insane money. But do you think that long term that those are going to continue to grow in value the way they are?
Yeah, I mean, the projects like CryptoPunks, Bored Apes are kind of Genesis blocks, in my opinion. So I think the value will definitely, increase, but the usual scarcity, and they all introduce something new. I mean, CryptoPunks just created the whole space, so that's normal that maybe 5-10 years time that could go to the millions, or the lowest price. So there's a reason why there's accrued value in it, is because they introduce 10,000 of them. It's scarce. They have different characteristics. elegantly. It's very simple. It's very, elegant. And they serve as avatars as well. So someone like G-Money, you probably know G-Money, build all his followership thanks to actually CryptoPunk, his ape. And he's followed by the likes of Mark Cuban's and so on. So I think what is interesting in the space as a whole, in the NFT space, is good ideas are always handsomely rewarded. Now, there's a lot of copycats. People are just replicating the same models all day long. So whoever comes with the bright ideas, the new models, I liked a lot. Beginning of 2021 in February, there was a project called Hashmasks. If you know this one, I found it very interesting because Hashmasks was something, I think it was 13,000 masks. Now, you as a user could be part of the creative process, whereby you could actually, thanks to a cryptocurrency, rename the name of the art. And I think the design was pretty cool. The economics interesting, but they introduced something new, which is the renaming of your NFT. So yeah, Hashmax is a very, very interesting project.
Very cool. No, I'd never heard of it.
Yeah. This one was literally in February, 1st of February, 2021. So before the massive wave, and these people introduced some pretty cool thing. I think it's stored on the IPFS, and they got some traction. Now, the reality as well is how do you dynamize your community? Because a lot of those projects, get a lot of tractions at the beginning, and then suddenly nothing happens because there's no community, or it was just, some form of money grab or everything. So I'm very keen on. There's another project if you want to check called what is the Divine Anarchy. Divine Anarchy. So Divine Anarchy is very interesting because it's is a community. So you have different bloodlines, and you are part of tribes. And you vote on certain outcomes. You can sacrifice yourself. I think it's very brilliant. It's a social game, and there's a lot of game theory around the ability to take action, to create groups. There's this governance aspect. It's really well thought, and I'm a big fan. I got a few of them, but I think in terms of the game around it, the ability to take action and make some form of decision making is interesting. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Hey, listen, and it looks like it's in kind of that lull state of not in hype mode anymore. So yeah, no, I'll go ape into that one here shortly. Not financial advice. No one should ever do anything I do. I burn ETH like it's, going out of style. Aymeric, really, I got to tell you, this has been absolutely fascinating. We're kind of at, an hour and 20 minutes of recording. You're extremely busy. You got a million projects going on. It's very late there, in London. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of communicate with our base, community, as well as, how can they reach you, or if there's more interest, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, so Vizidox.com, that's the website. I'm running now an experiment. So I just deleted my Twitter account, and I'm just going to create a new one. So it's called 100x Mindset. But the point we're trying to do is, the reason I deleted my Twitter account is because I no longer want to, I've been reading on blockchain for the last 8 years, and because we have some interesting project coming in, I want to start to reflect on real use cases that will start to comment, because it's one thing to talk about things you're not at the very heart of it, and there's another thing when you are at the very middle and you can actually share your takeaways, like if this football club comes in, if this RFID large retailer comes in, we'll be very keen. I'll be keen to actually reflect on it and show people how things are actually evolving.
There's no. Have you looked at BitClouds or the Deso blockchain? Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. Any opinions?
I don't know enough about this. I know I read a little bit on it, but tell me.
So Deso is its own chain. So Deso is a layer one, and they are designed to be social first. So Deso is built by Nader. He's been around a very long time, and it allows you to monetize and own. The great thing is because they're a layer one, anyone can build an app on top of there. So there's no ability for Twitter or any centralized way to say, we don't like what Aymeric's saying. We don't like this type of thing, and to turn you off. You can have any app can produce it, can read and write off of it, and the users can monetize their own, their tweets, their NFTs, and everything related to it. But yeah, I would say absolutely take a look at that, because if you're saying you're willing to start over and you're clearly believers in blockchain, we support them. We have a yWhale account there, and I'll shoot you a text on there, and we'll follow you. Awesome.
I mean, the last point I wanted to point is, whoever hears about crypto, blockchain, metaverse, NFTs, you just get involved, open the door, because the best opportunities are coming. I remember when Gary V mentioned about social media back in 2005, and some people build careers on top of this. Now, what's coming now is going to be bigger, and you're going to have, social influencers in the metaverse, and there are a lot of seats to be taken. And I think it will not be a good thing to get more, familiar with what's going on in the space. I think the opportunities are tremendous.
It's never ending. It's never sleeps. And I mean, I've never seen anything like it, because the community is also beyond anything I've ever seen. We can reach out to anyone and have a very open, candid conversation, because we all want to see Web3 succeed. And so I thank you for taking the time today and really helping to educate, and more than just VDX, but really to educate our community on what it took to get here and where you believe it should go, and the fact that I really appreciate the fact that you guys are looking to not just go straight Web3, but you're bridging the gap between two and three. And I think that's a very important business that no one has paid much attention to yet. All right. Well, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and end this recording now, and we'll catch you on the next time.